Hi everyone, my name's Fleur Flanagan. I'm a project coordinator at Create Infrastructure, and in this video I will be talking about the Creative Capital Funding Program, and I'll be talking about the medium to large category of the Creative Capital Fund and the expression of interest stage of this category. So I'm just going to share my screen with you so you can see the EOI application form. Now, the form is in Smarty Grants, and what we provide here in the first part of the form is a guide to the application and the eligibility. So a quick introduction to Creative Capital, why it's been introduced, what projects will be funded under Creative Capital, and the EOI form itself is for medium to large projects seeking funding of 250,000 up to and including 5 million. Now, this category, the medium to large category, is in 2 stages, and here we are addressing the expression of interest stage, which is the first stage of this round. The EOI form should be completed and submitted before closing at midday, 12 noon, on Wednesday, the 3rd of November. Your expression of interest will be assessed, and if successful, you will then be invited to submit a full application. And invited applications open on Friday, the 26th of November, 2021, and close on Monday, the 28th of March, 2022. What are the eligibility requirements? And what is an eligible organisation? Applicants must hold an Australian business number, an ABN, an Australian company number, ACN, or be registered with New South Wales Fair Trading under the Associations Incorporation Act 2009 or other act. And an applicant must be one of the following entities: a local council, or a joint organisation of council, or a not-for-profit organisation including a business chamber, industry association, or a charity, a conservatoria, or a local Aboriginal land council. So these are the 5 eligible organisations that can apply for funding. It's important to note that there is no limit on the number of applications that an organisation can make. If applications are submitted for projects that are delivered across multiple local government areas, and the LGA falls in those LGAs fall in different tiers as specified in Creative Capital guidelines, we ask that you contact the Creative Capital team to discuss that further. You are ineligible to apply for Creative Capital funding if you are a local, state or federal government department or agency, and that does include state cultural or institutions. So you wouldn't be eligible for funding, or if you are an educational institution, including preschools, primary schools, secondary schools, universities or TAFEs, you're not eligible to apply for funding, but conservatoria are eligible. Eligible projects. To be eligible, projects must meet the following conditions. The infrastructure must be based in New South Wales and primarily be for arts and culture use. You must be able to demonstrate a co-contribution. This can be in the form of cash or in-kind support and be proportionate to the estimated total project cost. That's the ETC, determined by location of the project as per the tiers as specified in Creative Capital guidelines. You must be able to show evidence of community consultation and how the project will improve arts, culture or heritage outcomes for your community. Please note that priority will be given to projects that can realise benefits efficiently and effectively in the near term. Medium to large projects, if your application is successful, must commence within 3 months of your execution of funding agreement, unless the project is subject to planning approval, in which case construction must commence within 9 months of execution of your funding agreement. We list the types of projects that Creative Capital will fund. That includes new builds, refurbishments, including repurposing of existing space for arts and culture use, and acquisition of specialised equipment to address a cultural infrastructure gap for a local area. Capital works or specialised equipment to enable a museum, gallery, theatre, performance venue, a library, Aboriginal cultural centre, keeping place or language centre to receive touring programs. Refurbishment or specialised equipment. Now this includes major instruments to provide regional conservatoria and other performing arts venues with functional performance spaces. Investment to enable a museum, gallery, theatre, performance venue, library, Aboriginal cultural centre, keeping place or language centre to provide a cultural precinct or hub for a local or regional area, and that enables support to be given to smaller venues in that area. The establishment of collections digitisation hubs in a regional area that doesn't currently have one. This must be in line with the guidelines for previous government investment in collections digitisation. And there is a link here where you can find additional information. Data management systems and other digital infrastructure, including collection management systems and recording, broadcasting and live streaming equipment, and development, including master planning of Aboriginal cultural centres, keeping places, language centres and other Aboriginal cultural infrastructure investment to assist in building new libraries in locations that don't currently have a library. You do need to read and understand the Creative Capital guidelines and eligibility requirements, and declare that your project meets these eligibility requirements. Now, if you're unsure if your project meets the eligibility criteria, please contact the Creative Capital team to discuss this further. Also note that if you submit an EOI, an expression of interest that is not eligible, you will be notified within 21 days of the grant round closing, and your expression of interest will not proceed to full application. For more information regarding eligibility and examples of eligible and ineligible projects, you can refer to the Creative Capital guidelines. And again, there is a link here to those guidelines. When you're filling in the EOI form, save the form regularly, provide responses to all the required fields. The required fields are marked with red asterisks, and fill out all relevant sections of the EOI form. You must populate the budget section completely and ensure that you have the EOI approved by the head of your organisation. And again, we reiterate that you must submit the completed EOI form prior to midday, 12 noon on Wednesday the 3rd of November. Our contact details are here, our phone number, we have a mobile number and also our email address. if you want to discuss any aspect of the eligibility of your project. We then move into the project summary section of the EOI form. Now, we need to know your project title. This should be no more than 10 words, and the title should clearly articulate the activities that the project will undertake. We ask for a brief description, and we provide an example of a project description here. This is a free text box that you can complete with your description, but it must be no more than 200 words. We need to know your project type, if it's an entirely new build, an upgrade to an existing building, a refurbishment of an existing building, if it's a purchase or installation of equipment, or if it's related to digital data management systems or digital infrastructure. At least one choice must be selected. If these choices don't quite fit your project type, you have the option of clicking other, and there'll be a free text box that you can complete here. We ask, is your project primarily for arts or cultural purposes? Is your project for exclusive private benefit? And which priority activity will your project primarily seek to address? We ask that you nominate one of these 6 priority activities. And then we also ask you, what is the primary art form of your project? And we also ask if there are any other art forms involved in the project. You can click, or if it's other, you can then provide additional information here in the free text box. Where will your project take place? What is the physical location of where your project will take place or where it will be built? We need to know if the applicant organisation owns the land or premises, is a trustee, or if you possess an instrument of tenure, for example, a lease, and if the owner of the facility has approved the undertaking of construction, extension, or improvement to the premises. We ask for your LGA, your region, your state electorate, and your federal electorate, and you'll note that there are links to help you complete that information. We need to know your estimated project start and end dates, and we need to know your total project cost and the funding amount that you're requesting. We also ask if your project can be delivered in stages, the amount that you're requesting from Creative Capital, which must be a whole dollar amount, and the estimated total project cost. So the total expected estimated budget needed to deliver the project. So you can estimate that here. If your project can be delivered in stages or phases, we ask that you provide us with some additional details in this free text box. Then we move into co-contribution. So we need to know a little more detail of your co-contribution, whether it's in the form of cash or in-kind support. Refer to the Creative Capital guidelines for information on the different tiers. So depending on the area your project is servicing, there are tiers, and details of the tiers and the required co-contribution can be found in the Creative Capital guidelines. So we ask you to nominate above your LGA, and based on that and the other responses regarding the total amount of funding you're requesting and your total estimated project cost, depending on your LGA, the contribution, the cash contribution, will automatically calculate in this section. We ask whether or not your co-contribution is confirmed, and we also ask the estimated value of your cash contribution and your in-kind contribution. Note that you will be able to provide further details of your co-contribution in the value for money section project budget of the EOI. We also ask you to advise if your project involves Aboriginal communities or heritage. Now, if your business unit, if you're a business unit of a local council, we ask questions regarding the application. Are you applying on behalf of a business unit? What's the organisation's legal name, trading name if applicable, the organisation type, your organisation's legal status, and the address details for the organisation. There's an ABN check here, so you can input your ABN number and look that up so that you're providing the correct information. Head of organisation, we do need that information, and this must be the chairperson or president or general manager of your organisation. They must also have financial and legal delegation to enter into a funding agreement should the EOI be successful and your application. We also ask for a primary organisation contact if we need to ask you any questions about your application. And if a local business unit, we ask for those details as well. We then move into the project detail section of the EOI form. We ask that you provide details on the aim of your project. What are the outcomes? What are the achievements that you are looking to produce once your project is completed? What are your project objectives? And here we provide you with a little bit more space to provide a detailed project description. Free text box with no more than 500 words. Now, the assessment criteria, we do cover this in another video, but there are a number of assessment criteria that we want you to address. The first one being addressing the priority activity. This is a required field, and we want you to explain the priority activity that you'll be undertaking. So you do need to answer all of these assessment criteria questions, any alternative approaches that you are taking, your value for money. Response does need to include funding type, funding source, funding amount, and funding status. So funding status basically means, has the funding been confirmed? We ask that you nominate the total anticipated project funding, and that will be calculated from the amounts that you input here. The estimated total project costs, and this number here, the total estimated project cost, once you've completed these dollar amounts, we'll calculate here. This then gives you your total estimated project budget summary. So the total anticipated project funding, the total estimated project cost, and project funding less your project costs. You can also provide some additional details and explanatory notes on your budget assumptions. The fourth assessment criteria, your capacity to deliver the project. You need to complete all of this section. As you can see, anything marked with a red asterisk must be completed. Community support and reach is assessment criteria number 5. Again, you need to complete all of those sections. Then we ask that the declaration be executed by your head of organisation, as has been identified earlier in the EOI form, such as the Chief Executive Officer, Board President, Chair or General Manager, who has appropriate level of financial and legal delegation. So you are certifying that you understand that you meet eligibility requirements, that the information in the form is accurate and correct, that EOI has been approved by your governing body or equivalent, all sections of the EOI have been completed, and that you have the delegated financial and legal authority to sign the EOI. And then we ask that the person's full name, organisation, position and date be completed. Now, once you've submitted the EOI, you can't go back and edit it. So please check all of the information before you submit your EOI. Other information. Now, applicants should be aware that information submitted in an EOI application and all related correspondence, attachments, if there are any, or other documents may be made publicly available under the Government Information Public Access Act, New South Wales. So it's important that you understand that. And then obviously there is the usual disclaimer. Now, if you do have any questions about the EOI process, the assessment, the eligibility criteria for organisations, or if your project type is eligible, please feel free to contact us at any time. We're here to help and answer your questions. I hope you found the video useful, and we look forward to assisting you in the future. Thank you.